You know, I took my hat off and he was like, you know, what did you do? What did you do? I was like,
I'm getting into character.
This is my character. I feel this is my character. It's like, and he panicked.
There is no bigger, no more iconic movie star in the world than Tom Cruise. Controversial, wildly successful, he has lived his life in public pretty much since he was a teenager. But there is one thing you realise when you sit down talking to him. He has been obsessed since he was a kid with the big screen and where it could take him around the world. His latest film, American Made, is the true story of an airline pilot entangled by the CIA, drug cartels, and indeed the White House itself in South American revolutionary wars of the 70s and 80s.
Oh, this is legal? If you're doing it for the good guys?
This is Tom Cruise and the movies that made him.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Tom Cruise, lovely to meet you. Thanks so much for talking
nice
to me.
meeting you, yeah.
So I want to talk about American Made, but before we get there, can I ask, of all the different films that you've made, what was the one that changed you the most? What was the one that had a profoundly different Tom that went into it that came out the other side?
You know, the first film I made, Taps, because I wanted to make movies my whole life. And to have that opportunity and to start out, I went to every single department and studied every aspect of filmmaking.
In honor of this auspicious occasion, Major Moreland, your presence is requested in the hallway.
It was a very formative and unique experience for me because, of course, I'd never been on a movie set really. I just one day with Endless Love, but I was learning all about cameras and lighting. You know, I'd go and also script and how movies are made. George C. Scott, Sean Penn, and you had Harold Becker who directed it, and we'd spent over a month preparing the film. They had brought us all down as young actors. I was 18. And
wow, that's an incredible acceleration in your career from, like, I mean, a few years out of high school to suddenly doing that.
Not even a few years, it was months. It was months.
Jeez, I'd give my right nut for those Oakleys.
But I remember there was a day that I showed up where in the morning I thought, you know, my character, I want a shaved head. So I went into town, I just shaved my head. And I showed up to Harold, you know, Mr. Becker. And I said, you know, Mr. Becker, you know, I took my head off. And he was like, you know, what did you do? What did you do? I was like, what do you mean? You know,
I'm getting into character.
This is my character. I feel this is my character. Yeah. It's like, and he panicked. And for about an hour, he was really panicked.
It was a big mistake, Brian. If you don't want me saying so.
And he was going to try to, you know, should I get a wig? You know, what's happening? And then he realized, he's like, no, this actually worked. This worked. And then he really was very generous with me and would bring me in. And, you know, we used to have a thing called rushes, and every day we'd look at the films from the day before. And it was a real privilege to be invited in to see the rushes. And actors generally weren't, especially young actors. But he knew of my interest in film, and he basically cut together edits of scenes, not just of my scenes, but of other actors, so that I could watch and just really kind of say, these are the takes that are going to be in the movie. And so, you know, I was lucky. People were very generous with me.
Those early days, I've heard you say, those early days between, you know, right up until you're hitting Top Gun and stuff like that, you said you felt a lot of pressure in your career. I'm wondering, what did you mean by that?
You know, there was a very steep learning curve for me, as you said. I was a couple of months out of, you know, but I'd seen a lot of films, but I'd never made films. And I mean, you always feel pressure. I put pressure on myself. I'm very demanding on myself.
I feel the need for speed.